bit of criticism from this from the American people. Do you have a problem with Congress being in recess right now?
I'm ready to go back. I mean, I'm doing work in the district. There's always work to be done to take care of our constituents. But when I was in the restaurant business for 30 years, if the dishwasher didn't show up, who's washing dishes? Me. So we've got, members of Congress, especially across the aisle in the Senate with Democrats, that are using this as an opportunity to fundraise in order to raise their profile and to capitalize off of their base's Trump derangement syndrome. But this is not functional. And unfortunately, the Senate's not willing to cooperate with, I think, is a reasonable CR that we sent last week, where it's just for 60 days so we can sit down and negotiate terms on Homeland Security.
And what did you make of the move that Speaker Johnson did with this package, where the Senate did send you a bill? It would have funded everything except for ICE, or deportation operations under ICE, for the entire fiscal year. But then you sent back a 60-day CR. And we've heard a little bit here and there from some maybe frontline Republicans who are frustrated that leadership decided to go that route. Why do you think it was the right move to go that route?
There's not a single member of the Republican conference or the Democrats who joined us that want a border that's defunded. And we have seen firsthand what an open border does to our country. We have gotten a focused effort to get the criminal activity of the illegals out of this country. And I appreciate the adjustments that the president has called with Tom Homan, with Mark Wayne Mullen. These are good changes, in addition to the concessions that we're willing to make and the administration is willing to make to the Democrats regarding body cams and other things that will take down their negotiating concerns of why they feel like ICE is out of line.
And what do you think happens next here? Because it does seem like we're in a little bit of a standstill. Leader Schumer has said that the Republican proposal is dead on arrival. It doesn't appear that Speaker Johnson is willing to take the Senate bill that was sent over. So in many ways, I think a lot of people feel like this is a standstill and we don't know what's going to happen next.
We're not going to have a choice but to go through reconciliation. The Senate is on board. The House is on board. We're just going to have to get focused on a reconciliation package where it only requires a simple majority of either chamber in order to get this funding resolution to the president. And it'll probably be a funding resolution where we will not have this discussion until the Trump term is over, arguably 3 years of funding for Homeland Security.
So you're talking about, and we heard this from Senator John Hoeven, who said that it looks like it would be a 3-year reconciliation package funding DHS. I mean, that could cost well into the hundreds of billions of dollars, though. And based off the rules of reconciliation, the same process used for the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, normally the Senate parliamentarian will rule that it has to be deficit neutral. So how are you going to go about paying for 3 years worth of DHS funding if reconciliation is the path you choose?
Well, and as we were seeing in the overall revenue estimates, when it came to the One Big Beautiful Bill, the numbers of revenue for the federal government were incredibly conservative. So this is no different. We're going to have our work cut out for us. And look, if we can get 3 years, great. If we can't get 3 years based on the Senate parliamentarian, and we've got some software to kind of try to shape this as best we can. But one thing that I've learned in my short time in Washington, there's an awful lot of money up there that could go to better use, and we just got to do a better job of tightening our belts, watching the checkbook, because these are taxpayers' dollars. I am certain that we can accomplish it as long as we do our jobs.
And would that also, the reconciliation idea, could that also include the supplemental funding request from the Pentagon, which we are expecting to be around $200 billion? Is that possible to add that in there as well?
I'm sure there's going to be pressure from the administration to do exactly that. The effort with Epic Fury does have a price tag to it, and we've got to be responsible with the taxpayers' dollars on how we're spending it, or where the administration is upholding national security. So all those items will be on the table for discussion, I'm certain.
And when we talk about the war in Iran and the ongoing conflict there, President Trump has kind of been set his timelines here and there, and we're hearing updates consistently about what a future for Iran could look like. And there's been some members of the Republican Party who push back on this idea of potentially putting boots on the ground there. What do you think is reasonable for the president to do when it comes to military action against the Iranian regime?
I personally think the president doesn't want boots on the ground either, but he has got to be in a position of strength when it comes to negotiating. He is playing a global game of leverage with countries all around the world. In some cases, tariffs were the ability to true up our relationship. But you look at China, we have such a dependence on manufacturing out of China. There's not always a perfect tool to negotiate with them. So you have to go after other ways that they are doing business. And if denuclearizing Iran helps us in a negotiating position with China because of their dependence on Iranian oil, and at the same time we make the world a safer place because Iran does have nuclear weapons. This is how this president works. 24/7, 365. So again, I do think the president has to be in a position of strength, of threat. We have seen it where those negotiations may not come to fruition, and he has to punch him in the nose. And this is no different. Again, I truly think in his heart he doesn't want boots on the ground, but at the same time he wants respect out of NATO and those European countries that depend on Iranian oil.
All right, Congressman Jimmy Patronis from the great state of Florida. We're up against the clock, but